What mistake or crisis taught you the most valuable lesson?
Everyone can be I would not be one of those
How do you keep it alive after so much time? Does curiosity fade? If not many projects still have something to do.
I believe if you don't approach it with a lot of passion, it can easily overwhelm you.
Aurora Talks. Welcome to Aurora Talks, the Human Protocol, a MateKraft series. This season focuses on how decisions are made and leadership is exercised when change accelerates and technology redefines the game. Calm conversations, real experience, and a human perspective on how we build and how we work. Real experience, real conversation.
Jorge Manzur is the kind of professional who, with a cup of coffee, keeps the system from blowing up. With 2 coffees, he turns IT chaos into pure harmony. And with 3, he outright saves your soul, and even the devil ends up owing him favors. A software wizard, mentor, and friend, Jorge, welcome. Welcome, Jorge.
Hi Guido, how are you?
Well, first episode, Jorge. This episode is called Transform or Die. Leaders in the age of AI. So, Jorge, I'm going to break the ice. Let's see how this happens. There's a few questions I have here for the first podcast. Let's start with some prepared questions.
2.
Let's see what I score over here. What continues to fascinate you about the constant change in technology even today?
Wow, what a profound question at one point. I'm going to summarize it in what is possible to do. What is possible to do?
Okay. What is possible to do? Uh-huh. How do you keep it alive, let's say, after so much time? It makes me a little curious. Let's say, you've been involved in many projects for many years, and in this, what keeps you going in computer science?
Passion. I truly believe and feel that if you don't take what you do as a deep seated passion, it can easily become incredibly overwhelming and difficult to manage. Like everything else we encounter in this life, I think you absolutely have to put your whole heart into it, along with love, genuine enthusiasm, and all that inner passion that drives you to learn something new. It needs to be something you truly have to like, and maybe at first you don't feel that connection. But then life eventually puts you in certain unexpected places where you slowly but surely learn to love it with all your soul.
In the end, I think passion is a key factor, and if there's a bit of vocation, I think that's part of all this.
Yes, it could also be a calling.
You've seen countless trends and technologies come and go, eh? When was that specific moment you said to yourself, this really changes the game? It changes everything?
Recently,
Yes, of course.
I would definitely argue that the initial implementation by the visionary creator of WhatsApp, specifically when he first conceptualized that revolutionary communication tool and successfully put it into daily practice for everyone, I truly believe that moment marked a massive turning point in our history, creating a definitive before and after in how the entire world stays connected. In the way people communicate, in how to really harness the power of a technological tool in so many ways. And the second, much more recent, would be when the whole topic of artificial intelligence became widespread, kind of as we know it now, when it went from being at a very academic level to something much more accessible to people.
And I think we've all felt a bit like that with AI, right? Where years ago we used to hear that AI was weird stuff. scientific, machine learning, things like that. Not that it has stopped being that, right? But now it just seems more natural or simpler, definitely more accessible to everyone.
Yes, and I truly believe it's going to continue to become increasingly more user friendly for users of all skill levels in a very short time, I think. And
So, after so many years, how do you keep your curiosity alive in computer science? I mean, every now and then I hear people saying, I wish I could be a butcher or I want to quit computer science. How do you keep your curiosity going? You've been here for so long already with projects and years behind you.
in my personal opinion, I believe the very first thing is to never allow yourself to lose that inner spark of passion. And having found within the vast tech world specific professional career paths where you feel a bit more genuinely comfortable and confident. For example, maybe within programming, choosing a certain type of programming, niche, tool, or language. And always, always for me, the human factor is essential. That's what allows you to grow and help others grow too. It's like, even though technology is something hard or rigid, I just can't see it without the human side. I think that part helps bring passion into it, sparks curiosity in others, and you join in on that curiosity. And well, to keep working on it a bit more from the human side, but passion and vocation too, that word, you like it. I think they make a difference.
Vocation, yes. I think vocation is a word that I think it can be overwhelming and quite intimidating. Because sometimes people tend to associate the concept of a vocation with things like permanence, with dedicating every single part of your heart and soul. And really, it is not quite like that at all. It is actually much more about something like this instead. It's about putting a little bit of passion into what you do.
To feel it, to really feel it. Vocation is about feeling it. We can't go against that. It's part of nature.
Well, many corporate leaders feel that AI is a significant threat to them and their future. What would you say to help them see it as an ally?
What would I say? I think that we need to try to have a bit of a functional understanding of the concept and not see it as a threat, even if it can sometimes feel intimidating or complex to grasp. I believe that you don't have to become a programmer to understand the concept. We need to approach it a bit more from a human perspective, and that requires a kind of literacy process, learning about it, not always in depth, but at a functional level to know where it can be applied. And with that more specific approach, you will be able to make the decisions that lead to a better place or to the exact destination where you aim to go. I don't see it. Why should it threaten a leader? To be honest, I really don't see it anywhere around here.
I don't think it should be a threat. I think it should be an ally on different levels.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt.
Many times when we talk about digital transformation, everyone thinks about tools, but you always talk about people instead of tools. What does it take for a digital transformation to really happen? I,
I believe it is a deep awareness of the urgent need to transform. I think the organization or company where a digital transformation is going to be implemented has to make it part of the organization's DNA. If you don't make it your own, you won't be able to transform because you're going to have to.
understand. Just like in the past when we talked about quality standards, if the leadership doesn't make the decision to change,
If we don't become aware that we need to change, the changes will be superficial, shallow, not fundamental.
these are structural changes, even if you don't believe it. They start to change the structure, the way things are done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. I really do. But do you think that leadership today is measured more by what you know or by what you do so that so that others can learn?
A balance. It's very important to encourage continuous learning in others because that learning also feeds back to us. On a human level, you can't know everything, and others may have certain skills or experiences in specific fields that you don't, and they make it easier for you to learn. I think the part about being much more human and empathetic to promote this culture of constant learning among everyone, not just a few, but everyone.
I'll put it like this, kind of as a quote. That could work. I like it. For example, when do you feel a company is ready to change? What signs do people give you?
There are several signs. Driving digital transformation isn't that easy. Sometimes you have to tear down walls that are cultural or ideological, like dinosaurs.
Moving dinosaurs.
I'll take that phrase too, moving dinosaurs. It's not easy, it requires patience. And sometimes it takes a process of evangelizing, of explaining and re explaining until it's understood.
What a word, right? And nowadays, if we don't have it, let's say, completely behind us, today, companies that don't have leaders dedicated to evangelizing, change becomes much harder for them later on.
Yes, it gets much more complicated because there's also a change, there's resistance, not just a human change. What do? Usually, if you remember, sometimes you could see in the systems the reluctance to adopt a new way of working, to get organized, to adapt, to enter data, to retrieve data. From my humble point of view, it's the same thing today with guidance. At some point, people are going to resist. They might see it as a threat.
We fought back.
We've already resisted, or not wanting to leave their comfort zone, because certain processes might already be streamlined in terms of timing, methods, or something else. So there's already resistance by default. But I don't know, it seems to me that at some point sometimes it comes from within the organization, and sometimes you don't even realize it while you're in the organization. But people themselves ask for it in one way or another. And you have to be attentive to those small signals in order to approach cultural transformation.
Yes, we were actually talking about those massive dinosaurs and transformations, the importance of having change agents, people who think differently, right? And how are today's leaders doing? I mean, for example, do you think that IEX highlights the lack of strategic vision or the lack of empathy among leaders? How do you see those things?
I think that looking at it from my personal perspective, I think that on a great number of occasions, it clearly demonstrates the lack of empathy because sometimes the position of some leaders is also comfortable and that connection with the rest is lost and they remain only in the leader's position. From what we used to know as the old and beloved boss, but well, I think that at that specific point in time, they shouldn't feel threatened or anything like that. On the contrary, they should really focus on strengthening their sense of empathy. I truly believe that this is exactly what makes the entire process so much more meaningful for everyone involved in the long run.
The difference. That's what makes a difference. Okay, yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's tough and it's harsh, the lack of empathy at all levels. I notice it a lot, I really do. It's been years since I've been over there in Argentina, and along the way, the lack of empathy is something I keep noticing. I don't know if it has to do with Europe, if it has to do with generations, if it's because maybe you start seeing things as you get older. So you notice things you didn't see before. I don't know. But I do feel that the lack of empathy is a common factor I see. Well, moving a bit more towards AI and mindset, what essential new competencies should teams strive to cultivate to effectively collaborate alongside AI without losing their core humanity?
Well, for me, the key is adaptability. Adapting is a must, no matter what. That's a matter of survival, both professionally and obviously at the team level. I think that as machines or algorithms start taking over tasks and automating processes, I firmly believe and maintain that things like innate creativity, highly effective communication skills, and even complex problem solving become more valuable than ever before. In my personal opinion, I think that's a critical point where professionals truly need to continuously stay up to date with the latest trends, specifically to learn how to cultivate even more opportunities within those particular areas, because it is crucial to recognize that the rest can be learned in one way or another. But I think that without what I just mentioned, creativity, effective communication, and complex problem solving, everything else that remains is just about learning something, truly knowing it, and dedicating many hours to it. What kind of team strength can you build if you don't have those values or those guidelines? I mean, we go back.
To values, to culture, right?
For me, the foundation is always the human being. It's like a hammer. A sculptor can use it, a butcher can use it to pound a cutlet, a carpenter can use it. Different ways to use the same tool.
Well, the next question is a bit about this same topic, which has to do with you who have always had a humanistic perspective on technology. How do we maintain that in the age of the algorithm?
Emotional intelligence.
Where Facebook or Google or the way the TikTok or Instagram algorithm sees you, they keep you hooked. And it's like we're constantly paying attention to those algorithms. How do we stay grounded in this era?
Emotional intelligence, values, it comes back to the same thing. Empathy. We've all been in someone else's shoes at some point, understanding that. The thing is, a lot of times that clashes with our ego, and it's not easy, or sometimes it's just not possible. No one here is making value judgments or judging anyone, but sometimes it's just not possible. Either you don't have the tools or you just don't know how. So I think that emotional intelligence and teamwork are essential. And of course, once again, we come back to human values. And ultimately, we're all human. So that's our common thread. Beyond any work team. I thought you were going to ask me something.
No. It's fine. I won't interrupt you. Well, just to continue a bit further with this discussion, right? With this final concluding part, we are finally reaching the very end. Culture, learning, and the future. Let's talk a bit about that.
Go ahead.
Well, I think it's mostly about leaving a somewhat inspiring message, right? About the role of humans in innovation. If you could teach just one thing to the next generation, Jorge, and to the next generation of programmers or entrepreneurs, what would it be?
I would tell them to remember that we've all been in that place at some point in a similar situation. To truly stand still within that fleeting moment and be patient, to gain a much deeper understanding about the nature of solidarity, and to develop a far more profound sense of empathy with others. Because at some point in our lives, sooner or later, or when you begin the process of collaborating in a variety of diverse teams and on many different types of projects, whether they are technological in nature or not, you also come to the profound realization that you are, in fact, the other person. What happens to me today could happen to someone else or vice versa. So, learning to pause for a moment in this technological whirlwind, to look at the other person if you are able to help them if you can, and if not, at least be patient with them. Because we've all gone through that process at some point. And maybe we were lucky and someone walked alongside us, or maybe not. So we should try to be a bit more rational and empathetic.
As you say this, so many memories come to mind. Projects we've been on together, we've worked together, And well, let's see, empathy, let's see. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes, lending a hand, so many things, right?
Absolutely.
I think what you're saying is very clear. Listen, what would you like to see change in companies? I don't know, say looking 10 years ahead.
A deeper look at the human being as an integral part of a company, of an organization. Or
I mean, let's say like when people talk about values, about culture and so on, but without all the smoke and mirrors in
take action, act with intention, and live with a clear sense of purpose.
like those values should be a reflection of action, not just the value first and then maybe the actions show up.
Exactly. Very well put.
And what does it mean to you to transform without losing your soul?
Acquiring new knowledge is obviously something very human. Some people resist it, of course, right? But I think we've been learning since we were born. And I think that acquired knowledge is exactly what keeps us human. In some cases, there are exceptions, but for the vast majority, it keeps us with that imperfect, authentic humanity that allows us to continue upholding the values we were raised with, learn it, or repeat simply because they seemed right to us. I think that's it. Instilling those values in others as well. Repeating a cycle and not letting yourself be dazzled by anything. Okay, that's
Honestly, that actually sounds really good to me.
technology is just another tool, Guido. It's at our service. We are unique. That's the difference. So I think that's where I would end. And
And that's where you see the value of how unique we are. Because AI, no matter how much it seems to solve so many things today, it doesn't. It still requires what is truly human, which is creativity.
that is absolutely correct.
Well, a bit of a potpourri of questions, Jorge.
Let's go.
Let's do it ping pong style, or if you want to elaborate, go right ahead. What was the craziest project you ever got into, and how did it end?
Well, there are several options. Let's pick one, shall we?
The worst one? Well, I don't know if the worst, the most scandalous, or the one that.
The one that taught me the most. The one that taught me the most.
Okay.
It was Grupo Humana. Developing health and safety software, we did. But well, after 4 years of work, it didn't quite see the light of day as we'd have liked due to external issues typical of our Argentine reality. What did that allow me to learn? What lesson did that project leave me with? Many on a human level and others on a technological level. Technologically, it taught me that sometimes simply being innovative is not always quite enough, that often it is actually better to build on an existing idea and improve it further, and that not everything disruptive and advanced at a given time is a guaranteed success. That's what I personally took away as a valuable learning experience from this project. On a personal level,
That's good, right? Because one is always looking for the unicorn. Maybe the unicorn isn't necessarily
exactly,
what one should be looking for, especially in the learning process. Maybe the unicorn will eventually arrive and we'll all be happy for it, obviously. Sure, if it makes money and it's as impressive as a unicorn, excellent. But the learning, which is basically what we go through during our professional experience, the career is learning. And often learning to do what someone else has already done can have a lot of value.
exactly. And sometimes it's not the right time, you're ahead of the market,
That too.
and it's not really accepted, not truly understood, not particularly liked, and well,
Agreed. How many projects have been proposed ahead of their time? Us, Jorge, we ourselves.
yes.
Do you remember the professional node?
Also coming up soon, just ahead.
Ahead, totally.
Before even considering the idea of what LinkedIn would eventually become, yes.
When in books we were still talking about networking, about organizations. We were already talking about professionals networking, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, it was a huge job. Well, let's move on to the next one. What error or crisis taught you the best lesson?
What error or crisis? Let's see. They all leave a lesson. They all leave a lesson. Sometimes we don't learn to see them.
And sometimes we see them much later on.
Totally. There are so many. I wouldn't know what to tell you. They've all left me with something.
Yeah.
I think the artificial intelligence company left me with a truly valuable and good lesson. A very good lesson.
Okay, sure. In times of change, not all battles lead to victory,
Totally.
but the experience is worth it.
Exactly. One has to capitalize on everything, success and failure.
Well, and if you had to start from scratch, where would you start?
I'd start like any other day. With the same passion, I would always try to look for really good teams. I have been lucky enough to work with some very good professionals, some very good students, and also some very good self-taught people. I'd always try to start from scratch again to have a very good team to accompany me.
Okay, the team is fundamental.
Yes. Alone,
I believe this is not a path to walk alone.
I'd even say, not just at the level of your own team, perhaps on a project, but a multidisciplinary team with other companies, with other professionals, permanent interaction, permanent. Because what you know today about AI, you don't know about linguistics. What you know today about technology at the development level, you might not know at an infrastructure level. I mean, today everything forces you to connect more with others. That's why, for me, the human part is the fundamental basis. But I'd start from scratch with a good team.
Yes, totally. Because one of the things I've seen lately is that it's true that there isn't much focus on this interdisciplinarity, right? What I see sometimes in development, one becomes more closed off, turned inward. So there's no focus on saying, hey, well, let's talk to the legal guy and go and connect with him to ask for details to seek interdisciplinarity, right? Playing a bit more among all the participants beyond our fellow developers, which sometimes can also be a problem to connect with. But even more serious, and I think I've seen it lately, is when sometimes we don't even manage to connect with other companies, and the value of connecting with other companies, receiving fresh ideas, whether in the context of a, I don't know, a team building or some hackathon or whatever event it is that you're doing. I think that not being able to connect with people is a problem. It's a problem not being able to connect, not receiving fresh input from other peers.
Totally. I'll tell you in one word: venting from ventilating, venting. As they say in the industry, venting the gases, ventilating the gases. Well, the idea is precisely to refresh your head in that synergy with other professionals, with other companies. Yes.
Totally.
I agree with what you said, Guido.
Okay, Jorge, if you don't mind, here's just one more little question for you. I was just wondering, what book phrase or mentor influenced you the most?
Phrase a phrase that comes from the East that
Or mentor or someone or a colleague, I don't know. It's something like to say, what do you feel is left behind that really left that mark, that lasting and meaningful mark right in you? Let's say, for instance, a positive mark from the knowledge, the wisdom you have gained.
the phrase that I would tell you is simply this: simple living, high thinking. Simple but very profound. High level thinking, especially in terms of what we were talking about earlier, really has to do with having empathy for others, with recognizing the importance of the true and meaningful things in life, and with choosing to live simply.
Going beyond oneself.
Correct? Yes, that is absolutely correct. And simple living is a simple life. That doesn't speak of poverty, but of making life itself simple, going for the simple things that marked me a lot. It seemed very profound to me, and it changed my perspective on some things at this moment, at least. Mentor, there were so many teachers who accompanied the processes. I learned from so many people that I couldn't give you one in particular. With you, we traveled a very important path. I learned a lot. You're someone who left a mark in many things. And like you, there are many more who, each in their own time and journey, have taught me something. So at this point, I see them all as mentors too, because they helped me grow. They pointed things out. I learned. I couldn't really pigeonhole anyone at all today. I don't know if I'm answering your question or opening it up more.
Yes, of course, of course, of course. And besides, I think that in life you come across so many teachers and so many people who teach, right? And not necessarily older. There are people younger than you, my age, older. There's everything.
Exactly.
And no, I think there are many memories and many people who were worth knowing, worth remembering. If you had to summarize your philosophy of life and work in one phrase, what would it be? Make coffee both to survive the next technological wave.
Both mate and coffee. Essential. And more than a phrase, 3 words. Empathy, perseverance, and tenacity.
Sounds good to me. Great, great, great. Well, Jorge, thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you. Someone who not only understands technology, but also people, folks, how to be empathetic, right? And the truth is that's sometimes seen very little, as we were discussing, and that in these times is worth its weight in gold.
Well, thanks to you, Guido, and to you all. We'll stay in touch. I send you a hug. Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is the Human Protocol, the first season of Aurora Talks. A welcoming space where technology truly becomes human once again.
Aurora Talks. By MateKraft.